What's up, everybody? Um, there's probably a few people that's wondered where my truck's been for the past few months, couple months anyway. Well, it's been in the dealership shop. Um, the transmission decided to grenade itself on the 68 RE. So what ultimately happened was due to the transmission recall with the separator plates on the valve body. There was no parts available to get it fixed. The transmission started acting funny, started shifting funny, pushed fluid out the dipstick, so it was low in fluid. To make a long story short on that deal, it was covered under warranty because of the recall and because of the fact that they told me that they didn't have the parts to fix it at the last time I had it in for service. So that got taken care of with a brand new remanufactured transmission with the updated, they all have the updated valve body recall fixes in them. So that's taken care of. So I wanted to jump on here and let you guys know about a couple other things they did while it was in the shop. They had a bunch of other recalls on the truck. One had to do with the high pressure and injection pump, and one was to do with the calibration of the diesel injection, which some people probably thinks that sounds, like, I'm speaking Chinese or whatever. But I'm kind of wording it the way they did. I mean, the injection pump on this truck, when I bought it, it had the Bosch CP 4.2, and later on, as the recall started coming out on the truck, I learned that injection pump had a tendency to grenade itself. A specific gear inside the pump would grenade itself and send metal fragments through the whole fuel system. I've heard of cases where the same thing has happened on other brands of trucks, like the Ford Super Duties. And right now, Ford has no recall on that. So if it happens to your truck, to your Super Duty, if you're running the 6.7 Power Stroke, that repair bill is coming out of your pocket. And from what I've heard, that repair bill is in excess of $15,000. So depending on how many miles is on the truck and how much it's worth, at the point, it could potentially, trying to think here, it could potentially total your truck. That kind of a mishap. So the fix for that was to replace the CP 4.2 with the old previous generation of pump called the CP3, all made by Bosch. But the CP3 has been on the Cummins trucks from the 5.9 common rail fuel system trucks. Started in 2003, and as far as I know, they ran that all the way up to well into the 4th gens, into the 6.7 Cummins. These 5th gen Rams, when they came out with the Bosch CP 4.2, I think around the same time frame that they came out with that Ram heavy duty came out with the 5th gens. It was supposed to be a better pump, a faster running pump, and could provide higher fuel rail pressure. but due to the type of metal that some of the components in the pump was made of, it would grenade itself and destroy your fuel system. So thankfully, Ram and Chrysler Corporation have come up with the recall for that, and they change your pump for you for free via recall. So the past couple months, my truck's been up there getting all the recalls fixed, getting a new transmission put in because of the transmission failure related to the recall. So this is one of the benefits of owning a Ram with Cummins. Yeah, this truck has had a lot of recalls on it from the get-go. For some reason, some of that stuff, they seem to be slow about getting, the repair parts to fix the recalls on the major recalls, like the transmission problems, the injection pump, which my CP 4.2 I had zero issues with up until the time that they replaced it. But as a precautionary, given how that CP 4.2 acts, it's better to change it now while it was already in the shop over there at the dealership for free versus letting it grenade the whole fuel system and leave me stranded on the side of the road somewhere and who knows where, because I daily drive this truck, so it was inevitable. It was probably going to happen eventually. It didn't happen over the truck's warranty period of 100,000 miles. I think I had around 100,600 when the transmission exploded. So the injection pump was still hanging in there just fine up until that point when it went to get all that stuff fixed. The diesel injection calibration, as far as I know about that, is it's something in the ECM. And I will tell you the experience I've had ever since getting that done. And I think the injection pump and the diesel injection calibration work together as far as the way the engine responds to throttle. Ever since new, having this truck, if you're at a stoplight or if you're taking off out of a parking lot or pulling off of onto a road from another road or something, basically accelerating from a dead stop, the throttle response always kind of felt real laggy. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody or not. That's just the way that I'm explaining it. I'm sure there's a technical name for it, and it probably had to do with that diesel injection calibration. I would most certainly expect that. So ever since it came back, getting that done, getting those two things done as far as the injection pump and the diesel injection calibration, this truck has phenomenal throttle response now. When you accelerate under the same conditions as I stated before, now the truck accelerates smooth, and it's smooth constant power all the way up to where you have your foot on the throttle set to. Like, say if you're giving it 40% throttle or something, it's smooth constant power up to that unless you give it more throttle. Any throttle change you do inside the cab on the engine, it now responds smoothly and without glitching. There was one time it did that after I picked it up from the dealership when I first started it, and I took off out of the dealership parking lot. It did the glitch. And after that, for some reason, it quit. And now it's just smooth, constant power like it's supposed to be. So those two things with the transmission, those are your three major recall fixes that you want to have done with these 2019 to 2021 Ram HDs. If you have one and you're on the fence about it, number one, it's not going to cost you anything to get it done. You're getting basically a $2,000 injection pump for free, plus the labor to get it changed is free. So I mean, it's a no-brainer on that. Plus, you're going to a better performing pump that, like I said, it's got, that CP3's probably got documented millions of miles on the common rail fuel pressure ran Cummins engines from the 5.9 liter to the 6.7. So I mean, you're talking millions of miles of already proven performance and reliability out of that CP3. And the last CP3 powered engine that I had, or CP3 ran engine that I had, was an 04. It's why I traded the truck in for this truck to get this truck. It was an 04.5 5.9 high output, and it had a CP3 on it. The only trouble I had out of it was I had to replace the throttle position sensor on it, and that was it. As far as injection pump goes, that thing ran flawlessly, and it even supported, it had a programmer on it, so it supported up to 550 horsepower and probably right around 12 to 1,500 foot-pounds of torque. So I mean, and it still ran flawlessly. Not to say that eventually it wouldn't go bad. They all do after several 100,000 miles. Everything does. But the next thing that they did was there's a little step back here on the bed, on the tailgate of the bed. If you see that right here, this little piece sticking out here, that's where you put your foot on that, and you can push that, and it pushes a little step. It kind of hinges outwards to the back, and you can step in and out of the bed with that. So that recall on that was there's a bracket underneath that I guess bolts it to the frame of the truck. Okay, that bracket, they claim could fail with somebody standing on the step, and could cause somebody to fall and possibly get hurt. So that was recalled out. So they went ahead and replaced that bracket for me for that step. I kind of thought originally when they did it that I would have a whole new step right there. Like I thought it was all one piece, but just the bracket is separate, and it still has the same step on it from the get-go. Yeah, this so those recalls are definitely a must-do on these early 5th gen. 2019 and 2021 is what years are effective. By 2022, they came out with the updated transmission with the updated valve body in it and separator plates that takes care of the recall. I don't know what's going on nowadays. It seems like an awful lot new vehicles are being bought or being made, and there's just so many piles of recalls on them. Like there's random things that they're having issues with my truck. The transmission and the injection pump and the diesel injection calibration, those are 3 pretty serious things that I feel like, to me, that shouldn't have ever happened. Like, you have engineers that are paid to figure this stuff out before vehicles are designed and before vehicles are built. The CP 4.2, I mean, obviously Ram HD does their testing on vehicles when they come out with a whole new redesigned truck. They'll have some that are in the out being driven around, towing with them. They got them all covered up with disguise covers and whatnot. Unfortunately, stuff like CP 4.2 failures, transmission failures related to separator plates on the valve body, those are things that aren't going to show up right away. When they tested these trucks, they probably drove them for probably a week in various conditions, driving conditions, towing, hauling, probably done some long distance just to test everything's reliability. But like I said before, my transmission didn't mess up for over 100,000 miles, and my CP 4.2, it didn't mess up on me at all in over 100,000 miles. So they're not going to see that kind of wear and tear on those components, you know, just within a week of test driving one out in the field, which is unfortunate. I mean, some things you just can't tell right off the bat what's going to happen. That's why they come up with recalls, and that's why they offer free fixes to the owners of these vehicles that have these recalls, which is great. I mean, you know, the transmission was going to cost, had I not got it taken care of under warranty with the recall, it was going to cost $6,500 for the transmission, plus who knows how much in labor. And like I said before, the injection pumps, they're easily $2,000 now for the injection pump swap. And then you gotta, the labor on top of that. So I mean, yeah, you're talking easily. Oh, you're talking close to $10,000 worth of repairs that I just got done for free on this truck because of the recall system. I'll go ahead and pop the hood. The truck is kind of dirty in here, but like I said, I do drive it every day. Excuse me. I drive it every day. It's not a pavement princess, obviously. I mean, it gets dirty, it gets muddy, like there's mud there, there's dirt in the floor. I mean, yeah, it don't set long enough to get cleaned. I need to clean it. I'd like to clean it, but you use this thing and it don't set, you don't have time to clean it. Probably a poor excuse, but like I say, it does its job for me. I mean, I haul stuff with it, I tow. I use it for what it's made for. So I'll go ahead and pop the hood here. There it is. We'll go underneath the hood. I know this is a very talkative video, but I figured this was a video worth making, just to keep people on the aware that have these early 5th gen model trucks. Now I'm gonna see if I can zoom in here for you so you can see, but that right there is the injection pump, and if I zoom in on it, you can see that that is a CP3. The CP4 looked completely different. You didn't have the fuel inlet and everything on the back side. I think the fuel inlet for it was on the side of it. It was like a fatter looking pump, and the fuel inlet was on the side and stuff like that. Whereas on the CP3, the fuel inlet, I mean, it's right there up on top there. That's your fuel inlet. And I think the one below it might be return to the tank, or vice versa, or it might be the electrical plug-in. I can't really see. No, I think it's the electrical connection that powers it. So yeah, the return's probably somewhere else on there. I don't know. Like this, they got everything so crammed in here. You can't really tell nothing, anyways. It might be it on the bottom. I don't know. But yeah, that's your CP3. Now, what they have to do to change that from a CP4 is there's a pump mount bracket that mounts to the front side of the engine down on the side there. That has to be changed back to the old style. Luckily, the 6.7 is still designed the exact same as they were in the 4th gen. So all they had to do was change back to a CP3 mount for a 4th gen 6.7. No big deal. And then the ECM harness gets relocated, and I think that's it right there. Like it literally just gets moved back. Is all it does. It just gets moved backwards a little bit, and then they just plug everything in. And now these 6.7s, common rails, and the CP3s, they're self-bleeding. So once everything's hooked up and powered on, it might have taken a few cranks for it to self-bleed, but once it fires, it's ready to go. That's one good thing about these newer generations is they're self-bleeding. I don't know how it works. I'm not going to claim that I'm a diesel mechanic and know everything, but I've been around diesel engines long enough growing up that I know the basics of them. Like I know the injection pump and the injectors, and I know how it basically functions and stuff. But as far as getting into technical stuff and working on them, I don't have that knowledge. But yeah, that's your CP3. I'm trying to think of anything else that they've done. I don't think the diesel injection calibration that's all in the computer, so there's not going to be any noticeable difference there. Zoom out a little bit because we're kind of zoomed in far where I had to look at the pump. Let's see. There we go. I think that's about to where it was. I did have to get new batteries right before the transmission grenaded itself. I did have to go get new batteries. I got to experience that. So basically, if you go get batteries at, say, like O'Reilly's or AutoZone, Walmart, Advance, they're going to charge you around, O'Reilly's charged me about $250 per battery. So out the door is going to be easily over $500 with taxes for 2 new batteries, and they're AGM batteries. So they're more expensive. Yay. Luckily, I found a hack to that. If you notice, these are Royal King batteries, and they are AGM batteries, and they're the exact size for this truck. I think it's called a C7, I think. I'm not sure. But these are so much cheaper. Both batteries out the door was $135. And I tell you what, they run just as good as batteries from the big box auto parts stores, and they're Royal King. So I mean, it's convenient. You're going to Royal King anyways. If you're like me and you live on a farm, you're going to Royal King all the time anyway. So and they're right there, $135 or $139 out the door for both batteries. And so that was a much less painful. Like, I'm going to spend $139 over $500 any day. Let's see. So there was the batteries. The batteries on these now last around 3 years because these are AGM batteries and there's so much extra demand on them. Like you got to run all your electronics in the cab, plus all your electronics on the engine, all that stuff. So there's a lot more demand. So they're not going to last as long. I was surprised. I was expecting to get 7 years out of them, just like the old days. But not anymore. With all the added technology and electronics on vehicles nowadays, your batteries are only going to last about 3 years. So if you got a 3-year-old battery that's in a modern car and it's AGM and it's still working, you might want to go ahead and look into replacing it, because it's going to fail you real soon. And not long after I got the truck, I did the AFE Power HD Momentum cold air intake kit. Surprisingly, when I bought this truck, there was hardly anything, well, not surprisingly, but surprisingly, AFE Power actually had something aftermarket for the new 5th gen Rams. I was quite surprised, but they was actually the first company to come out with, as far as I can tell, doing, looking for stuff at the time. AFE was the only company that actually had a cold air intake kit for these trucks. So I went ahead and picked that up, and it just hooks into your Ram Air cowl for the front grille. It goes down, and there's your internal filter, which I need to clean it out. It's getting about due for service. And then it goes down to your turbo. So it all hooked up really well. I mean, there was no issues hooking it up. It went right in, no problem there. Trying to think of anything else. Over 100,000 miles. Yes, the truck is still factory. It's not been deleted. So far, I haven't really had any issues with the emission control equipment. It seems to be running, pretty well. Do I believe it's unnecessary? Absolutely. It's completely government overreach. If you ask me, the EPA. I mean, this stuff was all dreamed up by the Obama administration era EPA. So that right there should tell you enough of what I think about the garbage. But it's on there. I mean, and it works for what it's supposed to do. How long will it last? Well, I don't expect it to last too much longer than where it's at now. Usually the EGRs on these, they plug up pretty bad, and that's usually your first culprit of failure on these. The DPFs, I've not really heard too awful much. I mean, they plug up as well, but the whole idea of it is just a nightmare. I mean, it cuts the reliability down, increases your fuel usage, which in turn increases your emission output anyways, because it's using more fuel to keep the carbon soot deposits burnt out of it. So I mean, what are you really gaining? I mean, it's using more fuel. You get rid of the stuff, and you get 30 miles to the gallon, and probably an increase of 100 horsepower, and probably almost 200 or 300 more foot-pounds of torque. So you become even more efficient. You use less fuel, put out even less emissions, and they've done proven that these things run just as clean without emission control equipment as they do with it. So it's already justified itself as not necessary and more or less a government overreach. But enough with that. I don't want to turn it into a whole spill on the government. I mean, we all have our opinions on it, but factory intake, factory, everything's still stock factory on it. There is another thing that these things have. They claim that you want to get the Banks Ram Air and do I think it's the grid heater delete on, like, obviously if you can't do it when you live in a cold enough climate, but I think around here I could get away with it because it don't get cold enough around here anymore to really have to have a grid heater too awful much. But anyway, there's a bolt under there in the grid heater that claims that will melt down and come out and wind up in your combustion chamber, which will beat the pistons all to pieces and beat the valves all to pieces. So that could be a catastrophic failure down the road. So far, it's not happened, but you know, it's just one of those things that it could happen at any time. Other than that, I think that's about it on the recalls. Just to go ahead and show you, get back in here, get that receipt out. But I still have the receipt for all the work. So I'll show you on here if you can read all of it here. So here's my truck information. You know, 2019 Ram, 2500 tradesman level. It's a level 2 tradesman, but it just comes up trade. There's my vehicle identification, the VIN number, and there you see it says no charge. Says partial complete status, but it's hard to tell. They probably printed that off at the time before they had everything done. Of course, my number and everything, but it says concern customer satisfaction notification 1, diesel engine calibration. So this is that diesel engine calibration I was talking about that they do on these, that they come up with. Obviously it's in the ECM, and it took 2/10 of an hour, so basically 20 minutes to do that. And then here's the valve body, come from Bod None. I don't know what all that is. It's funny how they got this stuff worded. But you go on down through here, and so here's the recall transmission valve body. This says 2019 to 2020. So they may have come up with the fix by 2020, but I know a lot of places it says, you know, for 2019 to 2021. So, and then you got, see what they did here was replace the lower valve body separator plate. Now, what that is they already did that. That's with my old transmission. Before the old transmission, after it messed up, they went ahead and put in the recalled part, or the recalled fixed part, which was the lower valve body separator plate, and inspected the PCM software, which didn't fix it because the whole transmission was already shot by then. I mean, it already grenaded itself. But they went ahead and done it anyways, just to try. But ultimately, it was going to need the whole transmission replaced, and that was, you know, that sucked. I mean, it was pretty bad. And then here's your truck Mopar bed step. They went ahead and did that. That's just the bracket itself there. And then this is the CP3 here. This is 2019 and 2020 Ram HD high pressure fuel pump. Replace high pressure fuel pump and reprogram PCM. It took them 2.1 hours, so it took them 2 hours and 10 minutes to do that. Now I know, you know, they obviously have the right tools, and they have the right facility and all that stuff. I mean, if I were to try to do that in my driveway, it probably would have been about a half a day to an all-day job. Just because I'm lacking the proper tools and the proper equipment. But so that's the part number for it, and it says module kit fuel. So that's your CP3 conversion from a CP 4.2. And then when you go to the next page, it keeps getting interesting. So here's your 2020 or 2019 and 2022. This is a ABS software. So they had an actual recall on the ABS software for your ABS box. So they went ahead and checked it, which there's really nothing they can do except check that. I mean, it's either good or bad. If it's bad, when they check it, they'll replace it. But if it's good, it's going to stay good. So here's the cool part about my transmission. Well, it's not really cool at the time it happened, but it's the fun part now. So I had a check engine light on the truck, and when I had it checked, I had it checked in advance because I wasn't sure what it was. If it was either the related to the emission control equipment, or if it's related to the transmission, or who knows what. But it came out to be a P0729-00, which is what they checked, and it came up to be. And it goes to gear 6, shift incorrect ratio, and a P0735-00, which is a gear 5, shift incorrect ratio. And they ran a test on transmission, and it had internal clutch damage. I mean, this is crazy. So they removed and replaced the transmission entirely and topped off fluid and completed quick learn and test drove. But, you know, down here it gives you a description of everything. You got transmission with a clean core. They used six new bolts and one hex bolt. So the 6 bolts is probably for the transmission flange to the back of the engine, so they could bolt it together, and then you had 1 bolt there. And multi-point inspection according to maintenance interval. But right there is proof in the pudding. $0 and 0 cents. $0 and 0 cents. I mean, you can't get any better than that when it comes to, you know, recall service work and recalled, you know, them keeping up on recalls and making it right. It's you know, it's one thing for this stuff to happen, and some companies would look at it and be like, well, it's out of warranty, so it's kind of on you now. But Chrysler did not. Chrysler knew that there were some issues, and they knew that it was issues that were found to be related to manufacturing, which is completely out of my control. And even though the truck had, you know, over 100,000, it was technically out of its, you know, warranty period, but it was close enough to still being within warranty. And I had told them that the transmission was acting funny. So I mean, and I did that when it was still in warranty, but they said that they didn't have, you know, the recall parts to fix the transmission or anything like that. So I mean, that was kind of shitty, but if you ain't got it, you ain't got it. And luckily they still, you know, held up their end and got it all done. But now it runs great, drives great. Drivability on this truck now is flawless, and it's amazing, you know, when you have a good company like Ram and Chrysler, and they take care of you when you have issues like this, and coming out with recalls to offer the free fixes to make the truck as it should. I mean, this day and age, with everything being a throwaway society, or, you know, there's a lot of companies that out there that want to just stick it to customers after so long, not honor warranties, and not offer recalls. And when stuff like this happens and they have to, you know, do away with their truck because of a major mechanical malfunction that winds up costing them more than what the truck's worth. When you have service like that, it's kind of hard for a customer to stick with that company. They're more likely going to want to seek a truck from another company, which Now, that's probably what Ram and Chrysler realize, and that's probably why they do this. You know, have the recalls and fix the problems. It builds loyalty. It builds loyal customers. When you see customers, you know, having this kind of a problem, and Ram and HD and Chrysler are on top of it, getting it fixed, getting it replaced, you know, it makes me feel like if, you know, 10 years down the road, or 20, if I have to physically replace this truck, it makes me want to go back to a Ram. I mean, plain and simple. If they're going to offer the recalls, and they're going to offer the backup on the warranty and stuff to make sure this truck is right, and it's not costing me any money, because I spent the money with them first. It don't get no better than that. This day and age, it truly don't get no better than that. I mean, but yeah, that's where my truck's been past couple months. But I got it back, and it runs better than it ever has. Hopefully it holds up for another 10 years. Who knows? I do daily drive it, so I mean it's seen some roads, and it's seen some use, but it's still going. Alrighty, well, I guess I'll let y'all go on this one. It's, you know, we're getting on 41 minutes. I know this was a talkative video, which this kind of video, the only way you can't explain anything is you gotta talk, and I did my best to, you know, explain what was going on, where it's been, and how come you haven't seen any more videos of it. But here it is. It's back, and she's ready to roll. All right, we'll see you.